Amongst our sensitivity to almost everything in our environment, our sensitivity to criticism will have to make the top of our list. Let's face it, HSP are very quick to take things personally and deeply to heart. And we can mentally digest the specifics of every conversation, awkward interaction where we may have perceived that someone didn't like us or they criticized us. Oftentimes, it's the subtlest changes in someone's tone, their verbal cues, the way they shift their posture, the way they divert their eyes. These things are absolutely magnified in a highly sensitive person's brain. And we're very quick to sense the intention and the feeling behind the words that someone is conveying to us. And we can spend hours, days, weeks in analysis of this situation, whereas criticism to a non-highly sensitive person is more readily received as practical advice or simply helpful recommendation. But through our HSP filters, it's easily interpreted as judgment and that there's possibly something wrong with us. And this sensitivity to criticism can often trigger some painful childhood memories. Most highly sensitive people will have very clear memories of specifically being reprimanded, that you're too sensitive, why are you so emotional? So it's almost like we instinctively associate such intense discomfort around being reprimanded or corrected, and any sort of perceived criticism can trigger feelings from childhood when we were criticized for being who we are. And so this fear of being criticized in childhood often carries on in our adult lives. And without us being really self-aware, discerning, this fear of criticism can paralyze our lives. It can cause us to avoid all confrontation. It will make it impossible for us to speak up for ourselves. In fact, initiating anything will be extremely uncomfortable. We may avoid not asking for a promotion at work or stepping up into a more recognized role, because all of these situations could possibly make us confront our fear of being criticized. And some of our fear of being criticized is absolutely justified. Many of us have had extremely harsh experiences with people who were using criticism to manipulate us, to control us, because they knew that we were extremely fearful or had possibly really low self-worth. However, if we're not open to constructive criticism and feedback, that means we're not open to growing as a person. So here are some really excellent tips for highly sensitive people to consider regarding our fear of criticism. First and foremost, consider the source. Do you value this person's opinion? Do they have a pattern of being helpful or hurtful? Don't react immediately. Delay your response. Know the difference between reacting to criticism and responding to criticism. This is so important for highly sensitive people, because if you're reacting instantly, this indicates that what has just happened has triggered something in you. And the reason why it's really important to know this is because this is the point where we give our power away. Constructive criticism is generally good for our self-improvement. If there's merit in someone's criticism, we could actually learn something. So being receptive to criticism is actually a strength and not a weakness. So learn to let go of what doesn't feel true for you. Don't take it personally. If the criticism doesn't feel valid, shift your focus, let go, and move on. Yes, feel your feelings, but don't live there. Know that not all criticism is about you. It may be a projection of someone else's insecurity, jealousy, or unhappiness. Other interesting points about criticism is notice whether the person chooses to address you publicly or privately. Because if they choose not to address you privately, then please understand that their public criticism of you is for attention. Eventually, you'll get to a stage where you'll be able to observe that what someone chooses to criticize actually says more about them than what it does about you. And please note that what most people are really critical of is actually the same stuff that they don't like about themselves. To help you depersonalize, just consider that criticism is simply feedback. Someone else's perception, that's valid to them. It's not necessarily truth. And don't allow criticism to define your self-worth.